What is going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today, I wanted to showcase Zacian in the Open Master League. This is one of the most flexible Pokemon in Master League just because of all of the different movesets it can run. A lot of good fast moves, a lot of good charge moves, and because of all of those different options, it is very scary for your opponents to face. If you want to see my battles live, I stream almost every day at twitch.tv/ItsAXN, where you can see live insights into my gameplay, and you can see my teams early. I'd love to see you there, but without further ado, let's get into the battles and see what Zacian can do. Alright, let's get right on into game number one. Landorus up against Zacian in the lead. Our opponent showcasing just how scary a Zacian can be just because I have no idea what their charge moves are. They are using quick attack as well as their fast move, so fast move pressure is adding up here. They're almost at their play rough, so I want to throw this Sandsear Storm, debuff their attack stat before they can potentially throw a move against us. They did build all the way up to the 8 quick attacks required for a play rough. I'm going to shield just to respect it because the longer this goes, the better it is for me, but they go for a very, very risky bait of a close combat there. Unfortunately, we do end up shielding that move, which means that we wasted an entire shield on our Landorus here. Sandsear Storm will debuff this Necrozma. I wish we had Yveltal to counter this thing, but we don't. We're going to have to come in with our Dialga instead, and they will reach 2 charge moves here. I want to shield up the Moongeist Beam. I feel like the most likely Moongeist is going to be the first attack, so shield that up, go for the Dragon Breath down after taking a Dark Pulse here in just a second, and I'll have a lot of energy for the backline that should be useful even into that Zacian or whatever else they might bring in. Dark Pulse does a decent chunk of our health, but we still have almost 40% of our Dialga remaining. They bring in their own Dialga. This is going to get a little bit uncomfortable because this farm down could be very bad for us. They can go for Roar of Times potentially against my Landorus, or maybe even Iron Heads at this point would be enough with the Dragon Breath damage that they're going to have, and I don't want to take any damage on our own Zacian as well with these Steel-type moves, so this could be very tricky depending on how they play it out. I come in to drain energy with our Landorus, I save energy on our Dialga, and I get a nice Iron Head bait off while I'm in the process of doing all this to make it so maybe there's a chance I can whittle down this Dialga a little bit more. This is where having close combat would help out quite a bit this game. I'd be able to potentially one-shot them with the move. They end up catching a player up as well on their Zacian, but I'm kind of fine with this. They have energy on this Pokemon. I need to knock it out one way or another, and I don't want to quick attack myself into range where we were going to be knocked out by an Iron Head, so I'm happy to take that out as quickly as we did there. In comes that Dialga once again. They throw an Iron Head. If I can survive this, and if I can reach a play rough, then maybe I can swap to Dialga, go for the Roar of Time, and still win this game. It's going to be very close, though. If they reach another Iron Head against my Dialga before I'm going to be able to reach my Roar of Time, they're going to have me this game. What is going to happen? A race to this final charge move. Roar of Time has been reached. This Dialga is going to take out my opponent and barely clutch up game number 1. GG's to our opponent. Very, very close matchup. All right, next game, what are we going to see? Landorus up against a Primarina. Okay, I need to check for the fast move. If this is Waterfall, it's a bad matchup, but honestly, Charm isn't that bad for us. As you can see, it is going to be Charm, which means they're going to generate energy a lot slower, and since this is not like a Togekiss or anything, my Mudshots and my Sandsear Storms are going to do so much damage and start making it so these Charms are going to do a lot less damage after these attack drops. They are going to be able to throw a move before my second Sandsear Storm, but that's fine. I can still shield it up and go for the next charge move in just a second here. Since they're staying in this lead matchup, I wouldn't be surprised if they had like a Rhyperior in the backline. It seems like Primarina Rhyperior is a very common duo. I end up coming in with my Zacian here to potentially bait out a Rhyperior if possible, save energy on Landorus. I didn't really want to waste a full Sandsear Storm against that Primarina, so I was trying to quick attack it down. We didn't quite get the full fast move down before they swapped out, but they are still very low. That Primarina is basically not a threat anymore. They come in with Landorus to answer my Zacian. They go for a Sandsear Storm, but we were able to land a move before they got that move off, which means that we have done quite a bit of damage to this Landorus at this point. If they want to shield this, they can be my guest. They're going to be very low, though, on this Landorus. They do end up letting it go, which makes sense. They could bring in their final Pokemon. Maybe they bring in Primarina to try to charm us down. They bring in their final Pokemon here, going to be a Palkia, which our Dialga is going to be able to easily defeat. GG's to our opponent. All right, next game, Landorus up against a Dialga. Fantastic lead matchup here. Hopefully we can keep switch advantage this game and make it so that our Landorus is going to be in a very good matchup here. Our opponent safe swaps another Dragon-type Pokemon, so ABA Dragon from our opponent so far, but I'm going to come in with Dialga. I know I can fast move this all the way down, but it can get a little bit tricky if they go for an Aqua Tail bait. I'll have to double shield, whereas they're going to only have to invest 1 shield to get both of ours, so that is going to be a little bit awkward if that ends up happening. They did get the Aqua Tail bait off against us, which is not looking great for us. Iron Head will hopefully draw the shield back from them, but this is looking very bad now. It was a very good position to start out the game, but they have the Spatial Rend now, so I am down shields, and you never really want to be down shields against a Dialga. We know that a Roar of Time would basically one-shot my Landorus. I can't let that happen, because if it does, then they have so much energy and so much health left over on that Dialga to be able to just kind of sweep through my entire team. They come back in Dialga here. I go for the Roar of Time. Hopefully this goes through. Hopefully they no-shield this, but I would expect my opponent is going to respect this, shield this, and try to farm us down. I'm going to have to hard pivot out to my Landorus to not give them that full farm down, but unfortunately they do have 2 very hard answers to our Landorus in the back line. We have a Kyogre here, which is one of the best answers to us right now in the game. I might be able to reach a Stone Edge and do a lot of damage here, but if my opponent doesn't let me, which they do end up throwing a move right at the last second before I get the Stone Edge, they will be able to snipe me down and make it so my Zacian will have a lot of work to do to win this game. If I did actually have close combat, once again, I could have a lot more play here, but I don't really like running close combat a lot of the time because having Wild Charge for the water types, having Play Rough as well, just as a way to not debuff yourself is very helpful a lot of the times, but we are seeing some of the reasons why close combat might be somewhat helpful here. They come back in Dialga. If I had that close combat, I could have thrown it right now, but they end up sniping us down with that Iron Head. GG's to our opponent. I don't think our Dialga is going to be able to close this one out for us this time. All right, next game. We're going to see our Landorus in the lead up against an opposing Necrozma. Very good lead matchup. Our Zacian really doesn't want to see this. Dialga as well is going to be appreciative not to be against it. And in comes a Safe Swap Waterfall Primarina, a Pokemon I don't have a hard answer to. If that was Charm, I would have gone for a Sandsphere Storm and then swapped out. But since I see Waterfall, I know that at least we resist the water type damage with our Dialga here. But this is still a little bit uncomfortable. These Waterfalls, despite being resisted, are still putting us into range where the next Disarming Voice could potentially knock us out. Iron Head will come through. It could have been a Thunder here. Maybe they'll shield this up, but they probably just let this go and try to get a shield advantage from us right now. This is awkward. I have to shield this up. I don't want to give up switch advantage when I know they have that Steel-type Pokemon that I need my Landorus against, but they are getting so much fast pressure here. They basically won the 0-1 shield matchup. I mean, they didn't win it, but like they did so much against us that it is going to be very awkward for us right now to win this game, because we're going to have to try to not let them get a huge farm down here. If they got a huge farm down, once again, our Landorus, it doesn't want to be down shield and down a ton of energy, so I have to hard pivot out to my Landorus. This time, luckily, they don't swap out to a Kyogre or something to hard counter us. We get a shield, and then my opponent brings in a Palkia, so actually a very good answer here to our Landorus, but we drew a shield from that Necrozma. We have another move loaded right now against this Palkia. Maybe there's a chance we can get to a third Sandsphere Storm before they can farm us down. It looks like I can if they don't throw a charge move, but our opponent very smartly does throw energy here. This is going to be a very awkward endgame, but I do see a way to win it. I have to quick attack down this Palkia, have back-to-back charge moves to go against that Necrozma in the back line, and if I can do that, I might be able to win this game. Our opponent throws a charge move. I know that they're debuffed in their attack stats, so this can do almost nothing to us right now. I can tank 2 moves easily. Dragon Breath also not adding up very quickly against a Fairy-type Pokemon here. They throw another charge attack right now. I can go either for a quick attack down, or maybe try to snipe it down with some Dragon Breath here with our Dialga to do a bit of extra fast food damage now that we have back-to-back wild charges. We come in, we get that farm down, and as long as they don't come out of this matchup with 2 charge moves, with our opponent was not thinking that they could, we were able to win that game. What is this? Shadow Empoleon in the lead. Very spicy lead matchup here. I'm going to see what moveset they're running. If they're running like a Steel Wing or Metal Claw moveset, I was going to stay in there. But they are running Waterfall. Big core breaker to our team right now. This is looking very scary for us. But I can come in Zacian and go for these wild charges and potentially draw shields from this thing. I have no idea what to even think about Shadow Empoleon right now. I think this was actually a battle against Vilas, a regional champion. So a very strong person here that is using a very spicy pick that's putting in actually a decent amount of work against our team. They are actually 2-shield farming us all the way down here. Very interesting play. I'd come in Dialga, unless they have Blizzard, we do wall this moveset pretty hard, and if they do have Blizzard, maybe I'll respect it and shield once. We'll see what they end up doing. They hard swap to a Dragonite. That is not anything that you want to bring into a Dialga. I'm pretty sure I can actually just shield once, farm all the way down, even if they go for a Dragon Claw. I don't think they get to a second here. If they don't, then I'm going to have so much energy on my Dialga. I'll still have a shield advantage. I'll have basically a full health Landorus, but we do have to keep in mind there is still going to be that, what was it? That Shadow Empoleon, right? In the lead with basically 100 energy, which could be a little bit tricky. What are they going to bring in here? They bring in a Primarina with Charm. Okay, triple non-legendary team. Very spicy team from our opponent right now. But we can go for these Iron Heads. Either get the knockout here with the 2, or actually, I like this play as well. Swap to our Landorus, and then if they ever swap into Empoleon, I can throw a charge move here. I know guaranteed I'm going to win this CMP. Empoleon is not the most attack-weighted Pokemon, and Landorus is actually, aside from like Mewtwo and maybe Kartana, if you see those, it wins CMP basically against everything in Master League. So I can easily go for that CMP there and go for this next Sandsphere Storm. And I also have an Iron Head loaded on Dialga in the backline. But looked like a very tricky lead matchup. Seems like it's not going to be the worst game for us. We were able to overcome it against the Shadow Empoleon. GG's to our opponent. All right, next game, Landorus up against Tapu Bulu. Okay, a bit of a core breaker here, but the thing is, honestly, it's not that scary for any one of my Pokemon, but it has a lot of play into them, right? I have Stone Edge, which would do a ton of damage if they end up letting it land. This Stone Edge is going to be thrown instantly on good timing here. Stone Edge does a ton of damage, puts him almost into the red health, and I catch the Nature's Madness on our Zacian. If they're staying in, I can only imagine that they're kind of weak to our Landorus in the back line, so I wanted to keep that alive. That's why I caught the move here, and I know at this point I can still survive a move from this thing. Even at -1 defense after that first Nature's Madness, I should be able to survive and get off a wild charge, although only on 1 HP. Our opponent, though, makes a fantastic catch on Reshiram. This means that Tapu Bulu is still alive in the backline, and they are able to get a Dragon Breath down against our Fairy-type Pokemon. I'm going to make the call that just shielding once, farming down with our Dialga is going to be a good play this game, but maybe I should come in with Landorus depending on the final Pokemon. I am going to just hope right now that Energy Lead Dialga is going to be in a very good spot in the backline. Fusion Flare comes through. They're not going to get to a second one, because honestly, Reshiram doesn't really have any cheap moves. It has cheaper moves than Dialga, but not as cheap of moves as Palkia, so that is is a little bit uncomfortable for them that they give us so much energy. But what is in the back? Gonna be a Palkia of their own. That is honestly kind of bad. Maybe I should have come in with my Landorus, because I think we're in Dragon Breath downrange, where this Palkia could potentially just farm us all the way down here, go for double Aqua Tail against our Landorus, and win the game that way. I have another move loaded, though. They have to shield this up. If they don't shield this, then I'm going to be able to knock them out with Fast Food Pressure. Since they shield that up, now I have to swap out to Landorus, try to land a Sandsear Storm. If I can land this move, potentially I can still win this game, but if I can't land this attack, if they can get the next Aqua Tail here and knock us out, we might end up losing this one. They do throw the Aqua Tail. Is there any chance I survive? But if I survive, they could also catch. I do survive. I get off the Sandsear Storm. This is looking good, but it's also going to be very scary in the backline if I can't Dragon Breath down that Tapu Bulu that they were able to save earlier on in this game. They come in Bulu. Am I able to Dragon Breath down? They get the move on 1 HP. They take the win there. Tapu Bulu just a little bit too bulky, able to resist my Dragon Breath damage. That Fairy-type Pokemon won my opponent the game. GG's to them. Alright, Landorus up against a Rhyperior fantastically. This is exactly where I want to see it. I don't really have a lot of play with this with my backline. Dialga, obviously, with Iron Head, could put in some work, but our Zacian with Quick Attack, not even having close combat, is very hard walled by that thing. So I want to keep Switch at all costs here. When they say swap a Florges, I know if I debuff this with a Sandsear Storm, then come in with Zacian, I should be in a pretty good spot here. I know I'm not going to get two-shot by Charge Moves, and at this point, I'm either going to get both of my shields from my opponent here, or I could potentially just keep Switch advantages this game, depending on how they want to play this out. I'm going to overfarm to 2 Charge Moves. I don't want to lower my defense stat, and I also don't want to throw the play rough so they can start outpacing me to Disarming Voices. I just want to go for back-to-back Wild Charges here. If they want to shield once, they're going to have to shield twice, and maybe I can still win this matchup by using Energy Lead to my advantage. Wild Charge ends up getting shielded here. I have another Wild Charge, so it's probably going to get the second shield from this Florges. And honestly, this is going to be a tricky Pokemon to finish off here. I don't want to give him a huge farm down, but now that I swapped into my Dialga, they could go for a Moonblast against us, which could be kind of bad. We know that Rhyperior is still in the backline, so I want to keep a bit of health here on Dialga. They come in with that Rhyperior here, and I'm going to go for the Roar of Time. I'm going to risk that I'm not going to get debuffed. I know an Iron Head wouldn't be quite enough knockout just yet, and a Roar of Time will be. Breaking Swipe ends up getting the debuff. Of course it does. It seems like it always does against me. Roar of Time going to come through, hopefully still get the knockout. Does more raw damage than a super effective Iron Head. Doesn't get the knockout. Our opponent gets one parting Mud Slap through. What is their final Pokemon gonna be this game? We haven't even seen it yet. Hopefully Landorus is gonna have some sort of play here. They bring it in. It is a Palkia, and this is looking very bad for us right now. I probably should have invested in my Dialga rather a little bit better than I did this game, but unfortunately for us, I let it take too much damage too early on, and not keeping Switch in my favor could potentially have cost me here. They reach an Aqua Tail. Maybe I can reach another Sandsear Storm, knock them out with that move before they're able to get another Aqua Tail, but I know they still have that Florges in the backline that I'm not going to be able to just go for the full Mud Shot down against. I have to throw the move at the last second here, right when they get their Disarming Voids. This is not looking great because they are almost at the Aqua Tail right now. I can't make a catch, and I'm not at the move just yet. One turn away from reaching it. GG's for our opponent. Very well played. Florges, a very spicy pick. Honestly, maybe I need to give it a go myself. It seems like it can put in a lot of work against these teams. I can't quite get the Dragon Breath down. Can I get the Quick Attack down? No, I'm trying with my all here to win that game, but our opponent was able to take that one from us. All right, next matchup, very spicy opponent here with the Keldeo in the lead. Fantastic stuff to see, but honestly, this Ho-Oh Safe Swap is looking a little bit tricky. I'm going to go for a very, very risky bait. I know Sandsear Storm is either going to do nothing, or it's going to draw a shield and debuff them. Our opponent chooses to shield the attack, and now that we got that attack drop, I know I can survive a charge move with our Zacian here. Go for a Wild Charge. This is where Wild Charge is very helpful to have, and if I can land it against them, it might not knock them out from this range, but it will put them very low. They haven't thrown another move just yet, so they want to throw on good timing, it looks like. Wild Charge going to come through, either do a massive amount of damage or draw that second shield. Our opponent opts to let the move go, and they opt to go for another Incinerate, go on good timing rather than trying to snipe us down and get shield parity. Our opponent does opt to shield once again, and they swap out to Keldeo. That's an interesting play. They have a lot of energy on that Ho-Oh, but not a lot of health, and they are down 2 shields and down Switch advantage, so I can bring back in my Landorus here, hopefully have some play. They go, for some reason, instantly for a Sacred Sword here as well. That's a very interesting play. I know that Sacred Sword is a strong move, but I'm resisting those attacks not only from the charge moves, but from the fast moves as well. I think Keldeo's only Water-type charge move that it has is actually Hydro Pump, so I know for a fact if they don't build up to that, I'm not going to take too much damage here. Another Sacred Sword does come through. This time it is debuffed. I'm going to save the energy on our Landorus, come in and farm all the way down with our Dialga. I know a Sacred Sword is going to come through, but it's a debuffed one. I don't want to shield a move like this when I know that Ho-Oh has a ton of energy on it, and potentially shield advantage in the backline could still be helpful. In comes a Tapu Bulu. I know this matchup in and out. All I have to do is land an Iron Head, and then I can fully farm down before they can get to two of these Nature's Madnesses here. And if that is the case, which it should be, it's a very consistent matchup, then I should be able to win this game. They throw the first Nature's Madness, and while it might look like a very hard farm down, I know it's a very consistent one. Our Dialga able to get that full fast move down before they can reach the charge move, and that Ho-Oh in the backline is not going to be able to get off all the charge moves that it needs to. GG's to our opponent. Next game, a Xerneas in the lead. Just like the Zacian lead matchup, I like playing this one out, but it also is a little bit uncomfortable because they have access to Geomancy and to Moonblast, very powerful fairy type attacks. I'm going to overfarm here, make them throw on a little bit of awkward timing. It looks like our opponent not quite expecting us to overfarm with the Sandsear Storms. I'm going to shield Moonblast, go for the Sandsear Storm once again, start ramping up these debuffs, and potentially having energy in case they swap out later on this game. Sandsear Storm going to do a decent chunk of damage, not quite enough to knock out, but this next move will be enough if I throw the Stone Edge. A Sandsear Storm would be very close to knocking them out, but I think they might survive on 1 HP, so I want to snipe them down or get that guaranteed shield. We end up catching a move as well on our Zacian. This is going to be a debuffed Moonblast, almost certainly. If it's a close combat, it's even better, but our opponent does not bait. They go straight for the Moonblast here, and they come in with a Rhyperior. Once again, I'm very happy that I bait this out so our Dialga doesn't have to seal this. I have my Landorus in the backline as well that has a lot of play into this, but it is going to be awkward if they get 100 energy here with this Rhyperior. They have quite a bit of energy already. Our opponent going to throw energy at the last second, not wanting to risk a potential close combat. Although if I did have it, I could have thrown it right there actually, and potentially drawn a shield from them. They go and knock us out with a full-on Rock Wrecker, actually, not even a Breaking Swipe. We CMP on the next charge move here. This should be enough to knock them out if they want to let it go. Our opponent does opt to shield, and now since they shield, I think it's going to be a pretty safe shield of my own. Probably going to be a Rock Wrecker here. I can outpace them to the next one and KO this Pokemon if I need to. Our opponent brings in an Yveltal, and this is looking like a bit of a tricky matchup, actually. They have some energy on both their Rhyperior and on their Xerneas. I'm going to come with Dialga, absorb these Dark Pulses here. There's no way we're going to get one shot unless they're running Focus Blast, in which case now we are probably going to lose this game because I have to throw a full-on Stone Edge against this if I want to have any chance, and now I need so much more energy that I'm going to be able to have. I think they're 2 away from a close combat on Xerneas and 3 away from a Breaking Swipe, so if I can't overfarm perfectly here, then I'm not going to be able to have enough energy to win this matchup. That Focus Blast Yveltal surprise attack there is going to cost us the game. I can't throw my energy here, even though I had the Sandsear Storm. I know they're 3 Mudslaps away from a Breaking Swipe, so no reason to throw if I know I need that energy anyway. Our opponent played very well, and honestly, a very cool moveset on that Yveltal. Our next matchup in Necrozma in the lead. Very good lead matchup. Obviously, the Steel type is weak to our Ground type Pokemon. They swap in their Palkia. Maybe I should be learning my lesson coming in Zacian here rather than Dialga, because now I have to make a very annoying bait call. Do they go for a Spatial Rend, or do they just go for an Aqua Tail to try to get that Spatial Rend later on? I'm going to call it this time. Aqua Tail ends up coming through. Doesn't do too much damage, but I'm still going to be forced to throw a Charge Move if I want to knock them out before they can get to another Spatial Rend. They do end up letting it go. I get a full farm down, and now I'm in a much better spot than I was the last time we were in a situation like this with a Palkia Safe Swap. Our opponent going to come back in Necrozma. They will get a lot of energy here, but I can go for a Roar of Time, get a ton of damage if they let it through, and if they shield it, then at least I won't be down too much shields or energy against my Landorus later on. Opponent ends up letting that charge move go, and the Dragon Breath basically put them into range where one single Mud Shot is all it's going to take to farm them all the way down here. At this point, I know I can just shield this, farm down, and have all of this energy for the backline, switch lock them in with a potential debuff. That is a Water-type Pokemon. I was expecting a Kyogre, but no, a Primarina with Waterfall. Very cool pick, but we have Sandsear Storms loaded. I can just let my Landorus go at this point. If they don't want to throw energy, I can get another Sandsear Storm, and if they do throw energy, then they're not going to have enough energy for our Zacian in the backline. We can go for our Quick Attacks and our Wild Charges to be able to easily knock out this Water-type Pokemon. Our opponent will be staying in this matchup. Looks like no top less just yet. They might be hoping for a close combat, and maybe they can outpace the 2 moves, but they're debuffed. These moves will not knock us out one way or another. Hydro Cannon not even doing much damage, putting us just barely below half health. Our opponent realizing they are done. Alright, next game, we're going to see a Landorus up against a Mewtwo. Honestly, I kind of hate this matchup. I've seen a lot of Mewtwo's have Ice Beam recently, so they're going to be able to not only win CMP against us, but also be able to potentially bait an Ice Beam, and if they do have it, they could one-shot us as well, so I have to be very careful with how I'm going to play out this matchup. Sandsear Storm does end up doing over half of their health at this point, but they wait a turn, so if I'm going to try to make a catch here this game, it's going to be very hard to do. Since they waited that turn, I'm going to expect an Ice Beam, which is exactly what our opponent ends up throwing, and now I can try to catch a move here on Zacian, but our opponent has a lot of patience here coming in with the Rhyperior rather than throwing a charge move, and now they have cleared their debuff. They have a ton of energy on that Mewtwo, and they have a very decent matchup here with Rhyperior into our Zacian. Rock Wrecker doesn't quite one-shot us, but we are in a very bad spot where I don't think I can get another move off here. I can get one player up, but the energy on our Landorus is going to have to be used here to knock out this Pokemon. Okay, our opponent actually ending up shielding that move. That's kind of helpful here, but this is still so awkward because an energy lead Rhyperior is not an easy Pokemon to take down, even with a Landorus. This Sandseer Storm is going to come through. It lands, does a lot of damage, but our opponent throws a charge move here. Is this a Rock Wrecker or just a Breaking Swipe? I'm going to no-shield. Opponent does end up going for Rock Wrecker. I mean, I can't really shield one way or another there, right? Because if I end up shielding that move, then I'm going to be in range of just getting one-shot by an Ice Beam. I have to go for the Sandseer Storm, debuff this Palkia, potentially farm them all the way down, and use Energy Lead on Dialga to win this game. With that said, I know at this point, even though it's a debuff Spatial Rend, it probably does as much, if not, more damage, I guess, than an Ice Beam from the Mewtwo, so I'm going to just shield that up, try to go for a full-on Dragon Breath down. Opponent comes in with Mewtwo, but they have so much energy. I'm hoping that they're going to go for just a single Ice Beam, but if they're smart, they're going to go for double Psy Strike to do more raw damage in less charge moves. They do end up going for Psy Strike, and they have the next one right now. If I can catch, I would be spamming that switch button right now, but I don't have my clock up just yet. Our opponent has that second one right now. They're able to either knock me out or put me low enough at this point where I'm not going to be able to win this game. They get the knockout here. If I can reach the Sandseer Storm against this Rhyperior, maybe I can win this one, but they end up farming us down, and we end up taking the loss there. GG's to our opponent. Very close matchup, very awkward team, but I guess we almost came back from it. All right, speaking of awkward team, a Kyogre in the lead, one of the worst lead scenarios we could really see. I'm going to say swap Zacian here, and this is where having Wild Charge is honestly kind of fantastic. I know a lot of the time you're going to see these Kyogre leads with potentially two other water types, being like a Primarina and potentially a Palkia in the backline. So if that is the case, then I should be able to use my Wild Charges and start getting shields, maybe getting switch advantage. And once this Kyogre is out of the way, maybe there's going to be a little bit more play for my Landorus later on. Our opponent ends up shielding that first attack here. I'm going to throw another Wild Charge before they can reach another Surf. This Wild Charge should draw the next shield here from my opponent if they don't want to end up letting go of switch advantage. They do end up shielding twice, and now this could be a little bit awkward. They have a lot of energy on Kyogre, but I have the ability to bring in my Dialga, soak up all the energy I can, and potentially use my Landorus later on in a much better matchup. Our opponent swaps into a Zygarde. This is going to be probably the most satisfying thing I've ever seen. A no-shield Zygarde is not going to be able to really take anything from our Dialga. We have a Roar of Time coming through in just a second. No shield, a potential Bulldoze. It's going to be a crunch, actually, but they still get the defense drop, which does, honestly, a decent amount of damage to us, despite not even being super effective or stab or anything. These Dragon Tails adding up way more than I'd like them to. Roar of Time, though, does end up taking out the Zygarde. What is going to be our final Pokemon on our opponent's team? Hopefully our Dialga has some sort of play. In comes a Primarina here. I swap out to our Landorus, knowing that I need some sort of energy here, so I can outpace that Kyogre to moves. Or if they let me, I'm just going to go for the Stone Edge, sack my Landorus at this point, because Stone Edge puts them into basically just fast move farm down range. It's very tempting to go for debuffs there, but going for that harder hitting move, I think, was the play. They come in with their Kyogre, and I see the win condition. Just no shield this, farm all the way down with Dialga, and use an Iron Head, or maybe even a Roar of Time to knock out that Primarina later on when it comes back in. We just have to shield up once. Kyogre is a very slow Pokemon to get into charge moves. They're not going to get to another one here before I can get a full fast move farm down, and I think Dialga is going to be able to sweep out this backline. Roar of Time is queued up. Might as well throw it. How many times do you get to finish off a game throwing a Roar of Time into a Primarina? Not too often, so this Roar of Time ends up getting the knockout and taking the win that game, thanks to Zacian putting in so much work as a very powerful save swap. Well, thank you so much for watching today's video. I stream my battles live basically every day at twitch.tv/ItsAXN, so if you want to see live insights into my gameplay or see my teams early, please make sure to check me out there. Link is in the description. Also, I'm going to upload a lot more to the channel, so if you want to see more videos like this, please make sure to subscribe. Thank you again for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.